On a credit card, the PIN is entirely optional. You can read all the data from the card and never actually ask the card to verify the PIN. You still get all the data that's stored on the card. Basically what happens is when you stick the card into the machine reads all the data it can from the card, decides from that data what it's going to do next, including how it's going to authenticate the card, whether it should verify the PIN, whether it should take a signature, whether it should do nothing at all, and then the transaction proceeds from there. So basically there's a list within the terminal that says what kind of authentication methods are available, and there's a list within the card which says what type are available or acceptable, and they walk down the list together until they find a matching pair, and then they try that. And here we have an example of the data that's stored in some of the data files. So this particular file has stuff like track 2, which is an actual copy of your mag stripe with some small changes. So I can take your chip and PIN card and read off a copy of the mag stripe without ever verifying the PIN. So I've effectively skimmed your mag stripe in a chip and PIN card. So that's the skimming part of it. We've taken that. We also need to get the PIN itself. Within that data, as you can see, you've got the effective date, the expiry date, the PAN, which is the primary account number, so the actual card number, and so on, card name, and so on. You can actually reconstruct the mag stripe from that data, but as I say, you've also got an image of the data anyway, so generally you wouldn't need to do that. Do you want to just talk quickly about the CVV?
Yes, so it used to be, since I think 2 or 3 years ago, that 100% of the data present on magstripe was present on the actual chip. So again, as Adam said, if you skim the chip, which is considerably easier from a hardware perspective to do on a point-of-sale device, you can then clone to magstripe right away, and then you can use the magstripe either in a country where the chip is not accepted or by doing the trick, which I explained before, that you swipe, then you put a chip which cannot be read, and then you swipe again. They realized after a few years that that was a problem, and now the data present on the chip which allows you to clone to magstripe is all there except for a 3-digit number, which is called the CVV, which now is different on the smart card. So it is some form of protection, but knowing that all of this is based on a 3-digit number is quite worrying, because first of all, if you clone to 1,000 different cards, one will be right if you try all the CVV from 000 to 999, which, you know, it might not be a huge deal. And also, if you can massively skim credit cards with the chip, and you can massively do it when you do it at a point of sale, even if you try random CVV, you will get some right. And also, in most cases, banks are really not doing a very good job in warning you that there's a fraud if they see a CVV which is incorrect. We just assume that for some reason the magstripe hasn't been read correctly, and they'll move on. So it is some sort of protection. It is good to know that we cannot clone to magstripe right away, but you know, being slave of a 3-digit number nowadays is not that comforting. So here we talk about what you can do by using the data which you get from the chip for online usage. So as it turns out, there are many websites that they do not check the security code nowadays. And ironically, I was frauded. My credit card was frauded while we were making this talk, which I think is very nice. And my credit card was used on 5 different websites on the internet that they do not check the security code. And also, it was used against one kind of company which acts as a broker that gives you cash if you try to make a transaction without the security code. There are very dodgy companies that they exist specifically for enabling this kind of behavior. And all the data that was used for doing the fraud is present on the chip. And so this is the website, one of the websites where that was used, the Dolce & Gabbana online store, and they use the data. This is an optional security code. They got the goods. The shipment was delivered to them. So I was warned just 5 days after, and they also sent a gift to me, paid with my own money from Dolce & Gabbana, which I thought was very nice. It was very thoughtful. Here, we're getting your money, but here's a nice Dolce & Gabbana, I don't know, foulard, which was disgusting. Anyway.
And actually, in the same period, my son went on vacation to Italy, as it happens, and used his chip and PIN card in a bar. And a few hours later, he got a call from his bank saying there's someone in Bangkok trying to extract money from a cash machine. So, yeah, 50% of us here got frauded on our chip and PIN cards in the period where we were preparing these slides. So, pretty good record, really.
So, just a quick introduction about the different technologies, different families, different kind of chip and PIN cards. So basically, we have two main families of chip and PIN cards, the SDA and the DDA. SDA stands for static data authentication, while DDA stands for dynamic data authentication. And basically here we are talking about two different two different technologies used in order to validate the authenticity of the card against the terminal. Visa and MasterCard mandate that all the cards issued after the 2011 should use DDA. Actually, this is not.
Yeah, we don't think it's happening 100%.
Yeah. Actually, what we saw during our research is that I mean we tested
about 40. Cards?
Yeah, probably something like that, and only one card was DDA actually.
Go Bank of Scotland.
Yeah, and I got a new card this year, which will expire in 2015, and it's still SDA. And now it will be clear about the difference between the two technologies. So
yeah, SDA cards basically they are not able to perform a proper encryption. And what does it mean? It means that the data on the card is signed with a static signature, and the symmetric key is used during the actual online transaction. But during the process of the cardholder verification, you will see a little bit more about that in the next slides. They cannot perform the PIN verification in an enciphered mode. That means that the PIN verification is always made in clear text when an SDA card is used. While the DDA cards, the hardware, the actual chip is different, and they have an encryption coprocessor. That's why the chip on this card is more expensive, and they can perform proper encryption, and in this case the PIN can be verified by the terminal in an enciphered mode. So SDA cards at the end cannot be cloned, but in a general way, but can still be cloned in order to create a so-called yes card. That's a card that's always reply yes when you try to verify the PIN, no matter what you are inserting, and but they can only be used for offline transaction. Maybe we will see a little bit more.
Yeah, and offline transactions, they're very rare in Europe anyway. Yeah. Offline transaction, it means that, so when we have two different steps. One is the validation of the card, which always happens offline. And then there's a validation of the card holder, which might happen offline or online, and that's the actual transaction. The transaction might happen offline or online, but in Europe, it's mostly 90% of the time is always online. And that's why an SDA card clone cannot really be used in Europe. However, the fact that EMV was pushed also because of enabling offline transactions, and the fact that you can actually clone the card for doing offline transaction, kind of means that the technology doesn't really work. So they realized this, and then they said, well, but with DDA cards, we have a dynamic verification, so you cannot actually clone the card anymore for offline verification because you need the real card because there's a challenge response going on. However, what you can do as the validation step of the card and the actual transaction are separate, you can present one valid DDA card for the actual authentication of the card, and then you present a different DDA card for the actual transaction, or actually a fake DDA card, which will reply with something with a non-valid cryptogram, but as the transaction is offline, the terminal has no chance to verify that. So even DDA cards, with a more complicated fashion, they can also be cloned. We discuss EMV scheming usage for magstripe cloning, online usage. We know that if you steal a card, you can use it without the PIN, thanks for the Cambridge research, which is actually an implementation flaw which can be fixed by the banks, but most of them are not doing it because it's very hard to get the implementation of this standard right. So the standard here is how long? Five books? Four books. It's four books, yeah. And every book is about like 300, 400 pages. So no standard needs to be that long. And when you have something which is, you know, so complex, everyone will get it wrong while implementing it. So, and the Cambridge attack is one prime example. So the question we pose, if you use state-of-the-art EMV, we exploit every protection that EMV can enable us. Are the PIN really protected? Because remember, the PIN can prove the cardholder presence, and therefore the use of a stolen card. So let's assume that the Cambridge attack will be fixed, because it can be fixed. Is there still anything that can be done, or is chip and PIN, you know, 100% secure? So this is a cardholder verification list, which is read by the terminal in order to determine which cardholder verification methods are going to be used. As we can see, there is plain text PIN verification performed by the card, which is the one that SDA does. There's enciphered PIN verified online. There is a signature. There's an enciphered PIN verified by the card, which is what DDA does. And there's also no CVM required, which is the one that is used actually for example, at toll roads, when you want to pay with your credit card, you don't have time to sign something or to enter your PIN. That's when no CVM required is used. And this is sent to the terminal, is read by the terminal as a list. So there's a priority of methods. And if the first one fails, then you can fall back to the second one, and so on and so on. So this list, it didn't used to be signed. So remember, SDA and DDAs, they also have a static signature of the data. It didn't used to be signed. But now it is signed on every card. So it is believed to be tamper-proof. If you tamper with the list by doing a man-in-the-middle attack, then the signature of the card will be invalid. So if the authentication method is signature or enciphered PIN verified online or enciphered PIN verified by the card, then the PIN is not sent by the terminal to the card in clear text. And then you cannot skim it, basically. And it is believed that only when plain text PIN verification performed by card is present and selected by the terminal from the CVM list, then the PIN can be harvested by the EMV schemer. So let's talk a little about action codes. Action codes, so assuming that we have a DDA card, okay, that can check the PIN enciphered. And let's assume that this DDA card has a CVM list with only one entry which says enciphered PIN verified by the card. So there's no chance that you can actually have a plain text PIN verification. So what can we do? So there are some other pieces of data on the card which are called the issuer action codes, which are in pair with the terminal action codes, which are some settings which are present on the terminal. They specify the policy for accepting or rejecting transactions. So, and the two codes are all together. So there are three kinds: denial, online, default. And the online action codes, they specify which failure condition triggers online transactions. So what does it mean? This is one example. These action codes means do not deny a transaction without attempting to go online if offline SDA